Wait, now I'm gonna be. You record, you remember to record tonight.
Yeah. As soon as you took a bite.
Camera saved right at you.
Zoom to end.
Alright. We got one
The new
back.
people get to see right in front of the camera. Everybody moves down, turn rotation, different rotations, the camera's focused right there.
All right, 7 o'clock, I'd like to call this meeting to order, speech pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You. Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Nancy Rondell, Michael Behrman,
Here.
Julie Melton, and Matt will be out there. Good. Citizens comment for anything that's not on our agenda tonight? Linda?
Linda Rockwitz, 519 East Third Street. First, I want to thank you for serving. Every time I stand up here, I want to thank you for serving. Because I only have an inkling of the hours and effort you all put into it. And I appreciate it. But I came tonight to thank you for approving of the committee to study the bluff situation. And I just want to make sure my intention, if I'm even on the committee, if I get appointed, I thought I had applied, but apparently it's not official yet. And if I get on the committee, my intention for suggesting it is not to move toward regulation, but to facilitate some communication, some way to say, here's what we're thinking, here's what you're thinking, here's how, and information. Matt, you had a big thing and you said, here are all the best practices. Well, those of us who care don't know that, we haven't studied it like you have. So if all of us below and above get informed, it can't help but hurt. And I am hoping for consensus of best practices. That's my intention, what I hope comes from this.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Anyone on the computer?
Remember, if you're on Zoom and you would like to have, say some public comment, please raise your Zoom hand and we will unmute you.
Okay. Consent agenda, any public comment on that? On that, good. Anyone from the table?
I do. I have one additional,
Okay.
pretty quick one, but in the ZBA bylaws, it doesn't say that one of the regular members may be a member. Let's see, let me make sure. Yeah, to the ZBA of the Planning Commission. Did I say that the right direction? PC says that one of the Planning Commission's bylaws say one of the appointed members may be a member of ZBA. That's in those. And our zoning code says membership in ZBA, one member may be a member of the Planning Commission. So there's that crossover. And there's no reference to that in the ZBA bylaws at all. It talks about a city council member can be on them, but the ZBA, it needs to say, I can tell you, Nick, where it is. It's in Article 2, composition of the board. And it says, as provided by section 50.2400 of the zoning code, one of the regular members may be a member of city council. But it doesn't say, and one of the regular members may be a member of the planning commission. And so I think for consistency between all the bylaws, we should add that to it. And I can give you that note where it is if you need it.
And I think, Jim, we can make that edit.
It's just
Yeah.
picky, but then they're consistent
That will make the amendment.
from the zoning code.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's, other than that, I think that's the consent agenda. It's great. And I would move that we accept the consent agenda with a one addition.
Second.
Randall Gira,
Yes.
David Melky.
Yes.
Nancy Randall.
Yes.
Kathy Macho.
Yes.
Michael Bear.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Kyle, 3 minutes.
For the first page.
Here we go.
3A, Chief Knight Police Department Annual Report.
All right, I'm just gonna sit here, I don't like talking over people, so I'll sit here if you have any questions, and I have 2 minutes and 15 seconds to go. So, first of all, the cover letter here, basically, I just wanna emphasize, I'm just gonna highlight some of the things, is our 3 Cs, commitment, compassion, and community oriented. That's what our police department lives by, and at least under my motto, and so I feel like our team over there adheres to that to the best of their ability. We talked about that a lot, so I'll move on to page number 2, staffing. The thing I'm excited about is we've provided service 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Very top paragraph there. We did that even though we were 1 officer short. And it's one thing I think is very important. Sometimes people get to thinking that we don't need police service 24/7, and you never know when those medical calls that we go on at 4 a.m. where somebody fell out of Hillside or at their house that we respond to, plus the deterrent of criminals. So I just think that that's really important that we provide 24/7 coverage, and we did that last year, every second of the year. But just provide you the next paragraph down there, staff members, data hire, just to give you an idea of where we're at with Josh is by far our most senior officer, and then myself, and then we've hired a bunch of good people. And so I'm really, besides Dean down there as our Marine Patrol officer. The next paragraph is the workload. Towards the bottom of that first paragraph says in 2023, we completed 308 reports. Those compared to 953 in 2017. So it sounds like we decreased a lot, which could be a bad thing, but actually it's a positive thing because by doing less reports, it provides us more opportunity to spend time on the road or downtown on foot patrol. It's something that I've just condensed how many reports to do. We're always examining, okay, how can we do better at this and make sure that we're covering everything that we possibly need to cover, but not spending a lot of time in the office doing reports. So that's one thing that I've also taken pride in. The guys are doing a really good job of that, but yes.
Can I ask you a
Oh, yeah.
question there?
That doesn't go towards-
Does that mean there were fewer incidents or just,
No, fewer, we're doing fewer reports. To give you an example, when I came here in 17, if we made a traffic stop, we would do a written report on that. And if we unlocked a vehicle, for example, car's locked, keys locked in, we do a written report on that. Now, all we do written reports is on like, if it's some type of crime, a larceny or something like that, or domestic, or if it's something that we feel insurance company needs, reference to help somebody out with insurance company. But we've reduced, it's not necessarily, we've been actually increasing calls, but we've decreased it.
okay, perfect, thanks.
No problem. And then, actually it goes on to the next paragraph down is the events by nature. We've increased that number, and that's basically, we have computers in our car. So if we do a traffic stop, if we do a property check, if we do foot patrol downtown, if we're dispatched to a larceny, whatever type of call, that 13,000 down at the very bottom there. Last year, we were at 13,883 events for nature. So at 13,000 times we got on that computer one way or another and created an event throughout the year compared to 4,400 in 2017. So that's increased a lot. Some of that's like, I'd say it's not fluff. I mean, all those events we put in there, whether we check the marina at night or whether not everything we do, we log in here, but it is a fair amount of our activity is logged in there. So yes.
How long did you have that computer aided?
We've had it, I think it's been here since like 2009 in that
Oh,
ballpark.
okay.
I always went back to when I started, because it's like not fair to compare Chief Branson and how he did things to how I do things. Is that all right? All right, moving on to the next community oriented polices, and these are our priorities. The foot patrols, both of those are downtown. Property checks, we check businesses all the time, we check houses all the time, we check the marina. And then the public relations, whether we're attending basketball games or attending events downtown, those 3 things are our like community oriented part of our 3 Cs. And then the next paragraph down, I talk about the mileage. In 2023, we patrolled 79,994, and that was compared to 43,000 in 2017. So if you see that difference between reports and where the reports goes down and the mileage goes up, Last year, we were a little bit less than we were a year ago, and that's because we had one less officer out there driving around for 6 months of the year. So, move on to crime, the statistics in the crime category, in that 2023 category, it's some luck, it's some hard work, and, things have pretty much remained pretty consistent. Next year, I'll say that we're gonna see an increase in the bottom one juveniles there, just because of the work that Tyler's doing in the school. We do some truancy stuff, and those are all created under that juvenile. But does anybody have any questions on that?
I saw there's a loud decrease in loud noise by like half.
Yeah, I don't want
Back in the noise
to.
ordinance.
We've not had that many, I think this last year, we had maybe one, short-term rental complaint. It was very minimal, so we're not getting a lot of those complaints. I don't,
Do you see, possibly under fraud and embezzlement, maybe that, maybe starting to show an upward trend because of, people are becoming so sophisticated at hooking
oh yeah, the internet fraud. And
Yeah, exactly.
getting
with AI and all this type of
Oh, yeah,
stuff.
it's Nick's on one right now, and, people are just getting scammed, and we can put bulletins out, we can talk to people at Hillside, don't do this, and eventually people do it, and some people don't have any, it's people my age as well, that don't have any control, and somebody just hacks in. The most of those frauds are not like, they're just internet frauds, or they're like phone call frauds, they're not like somebody embezzled money from a business, it's all
Right.
that type of fraud, it's all computer generated.
But that might be something that shows an increasing trend despite,
It'll continue to go up.
despite efforts to.
We just sort of the only control that I feel that we have is public awareness. And, something on the way, actually, I heard on the way down here, I heard Nick check out a fraud complaint, I'm like, we gotta put that out again, just for people not to fall into those scams, it's really important, to educate our people. So, not people, our citizens. So, and then move on to the next thing now is parking, traffic. You'll see, our statistics, tickets were up slightly. Verbal warnings were down a little bit in total, and I did put this number up there, but we made 744 traffic stops last year. That's not a number, and actually, as I was pulling up that number from this computer, I'm like, it's something that I might include next year just to give a barometer where we're at. Next thing is crashes. They were pretty consistent, 68, 2022, and 69 last year. The only difference was that property damage, private property crashes, those are crashes where it says 30 compared to 17. Those are crashes that occur in parking lots, that we have no control. I mean, we do have control, but it's not, so you can see actually the crashes that we had on the streets, they went down. Property damage access, they went down 13. Personal injury access, we're very fortunate to only have one personal injury access where somebody gets hurt for a whole year, especially with this corner up here and a couple of the other corners, so feel really lucky there. But that's pretty consistent.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, so the private property crashes, you track those even though,
Yes.
they don't all get reported?
They don't get reported to the state of Michigan, but we do a written report on them because insurance companies pretty much require it. Like if, let's say you're parking Calvo and somebody backs into your car or something like that, that's what those are. So, or we have ITA, we have a fair amount of them up there. That's what, so we have to do an insurance report for them. That's one of
Got
those
it.
reports that we have to do.
Thanks.
Move on to parking, and our numbers are down quite a bit. I don't necessarily like that. Some of it's out of our control, but chalking really hurt us in that 21 to 22 year. That being one officer short last summer, we struggled getting somebody downtown taking pictures with their phone, trying to track it. I'm really encouraged by this year. I think that we have our new system. It gives a thermal printout. The guys are using it to do overnight winter parking, and so I do think that you'll see an increase in that. I reworded it last time, so I just like, hopefully our numbers will raise, and I thought that's probably wrong, so I just wanted to try to keep working. I reworded that, I sort of, that sounds wrong, so, but I'm hoping to get more compliance. We have some people downtown that park in front of businesses day in and day out. And this summer, I'll give fair warning, but we're gonna use that, as long as we continue to stay fully staffed, we're gonna use that new system and we're gonna have somebody down there doing it. So I hope to see those numbers up. non-criminal complaints, community service, and that's another reason I put on my little note right here. Another reason we have a police department. A lot of municipalities of a population of 1,000 people during the winter don't necessarily have a full-time police department. Those are the things that we provide, other than taking complaints, criminal complaints, whether it's vehicle unlocks. I did one last night for a lady up at the Family Dollar, because she did it a while ago. It cost her $84 for one of the tow services to come and do it. And I was able to get it with our tool, so it saved her $84. She doesn't have a lot of money. Those are the type of things that we pride ourselves in doing, that I think that's why we need a full-time police department. So, is there any questions on those at all? All right, no, ma'am, I'm looking there. Training, real quick, we try to do the best we can with the resources that we have. Training in northern Michigan is very difficult. Like when I was down in St. John's, we had the Michigan State Police Training Academy 20 miles away. It was real easy to send somebody down there. If I send anybody downstate to do training, it's cost the hotel, cost of the training and the meals, and it's not as convenient. I belong to Northern Michigan Law Enforcement Training Group out of Camp Grayling. That sort of slid over the last couple of years. They have the retired chief from Traverse City. He's sort of spearheading it. So hopefully we'll be able to get some training locally through that, as well as Kirkland Community College has really stepped up. They have a new director of their criminal justice, and he's really providing a lot of training. So I think that will really help us train local. I can send somebody down there in a day and come back. So I'm really excited about that. Chris Peros is his name, and he's just done an excellent job of providing. He understands our needs, everybody up northern Michigan. So Marine Patrol. When I did that, you can see that last year we had 100 times. It worked out to exactly 100 times. This looks like what the number was. It was in 532 hours in 2023, and in 2022 it was 58 times. And I didn't have the hours for 2022, but I know that we were on the water 58 times. We added that additional Marine Patrol officer, and I've talked to both Larry and Dean, our two, and our crashes have gone down. And then we feel sort of a result of the patrol times that they're putting out there. And they're two excellent people. I just talked to Larry the other day, like, they're not young people that are out there to try to make a name or write a bunch of tickets. They're out there to get compliance. And I think it's made a huge difference. So the voters I talked to, I think say the same thing. So I think that adding that Marine Patrol officer, we still came in way under budget for what the Harbor Commission budgeted us. We were way under budget. I think 15,000. I think they budgeted 30,000, and we may have spent like in a ballpark of 15,000. So I was pleased with that. So, any questions about the Marine Patrol? Now to the last page, just our accomplishments for 2023. We maintained one of the highlights, maintained current levels of reportable crimes. We purchased our new uniforms, we implemented them, and we bought a new patrol car. And then we bought the parking enforcement system. My goals for 2024, we're accredited to a national organization called CALEA. And actually Michigan has an accreditation program now through the Chiefs Association that I'm the president of currently. And I feel sort of bad that we're not a member of it. So I'm looking this year that we're going to join that's called MALEAC, and we're going to get away from CALEA. And my goal in that is MALEAC is much cheaper. It's going to save us at least half the price. Plus, right now, this last year, our assessor was from Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. He doesn't know what Harbor Springs is like. And we ran into this a couple of years ago when our assessor, we get assessed every year or audited. Our assessor was from the Boston area. And when I said like we didn't have any UDA, stolen vehicles, and we only had like 5 arrests for the year. He basically called me a liar. And it's because he doesn't know what we're about. And by switching to this both to the Michigan base, plus like Petoskey's accredited through the MALEAC. So our accreditation manager, Tyler Hoff, Officer Hoff, he can go with these people. Actually, him and I are both going to Grand Rapids tomorrow because there's a meeting down there. They have a MyPAC meeting. It's like a committee. All the accredited agencies get together for a couple hours and they talk about problems they're having, stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot better. We just got to figure out when we're going to make the switch. Plus, right now there's a grant that will pay for part of that. I'm switching over to. So complete the field training officer program for our new officer. He's doing well. He's probably got another month to go, and he's young. He's young. He's 22 years old, and we're just trying to get him to accommodate to the Harbor Springs, how we do things here. But it's going well. I'm excited to hopefully get him on as well. And then purchased and trained with the new handguns. They came in 2 days ago. And so we just gotta get to Petoskey's indoor range to train with them. And then continue to respond to all calls for service in person. And that's one thing I pride. We go to every, like medical calls, we go to every medical call that comes out. And we beat the ambulances. We beat the ambulances every time. And it's like, it might be 15 minutes that we wait. No offense to the ambulance, but they're busy. And at least we're there to provide some comfort for the victim, or else, you know, there's a lot of calls that there are lift assist calls. They dispatch the ambulance because the ambulance, I just had 2 the last week at Hillside. They dispatch the ambulance to Hillside for somebody who fell. I get there, I can help the person who fell out of the wheelchair, I can put them in their chair, the ambulance doesn't need to come, so there's no expense. So, that's one thing, we go to every call, and not every agency does that. Now I see more and more agencies are getting on the phone and they're calling the victim, you know, and I was told a long time ago by one of my great sheriffs is that somebody might have a smashed mailbox and they might call the police, and that might be the only time in their life that they call the police. And if you don't go and have that compassion for them, they're gonna remember that, and that's what I feel over there. And these guys they do their best, so I'm proud of that. So, and finally, I just want to thank you for your support. I wrote down here the handgun, our new badges just came in today from last year's budget for our uniform. We're not rolling them out. Josh is on vacation, and so we're not rolling them out until he gets back, because he's gonna be the first one to wear it. He's been here the longest, but they're sharp looking. They're really sharp looking. They have our city logo in the middle of them. And you'll see them in February 16th when we're rolling them out, but Josh is the first one to wear them. But just for your support, it's like our handguns allowing that us to have those 3 members purchase the handguns, and then the badges, uniforms, those guys, they're very grateful. They know it, and they're very grateful for the support that you guys give day in and day out. They all come to me. For a 7-man police department and a population of 1,000 census or 1,100 people, we're blessed. But I will say, to credit to those guys, they work very hard. They do a really good job. They listen to what I say, and we don't have any issues. And it sort of resolves in that contract negotiations thing. There wasn't a bad word period in that. And so I just want to, on their and on me, thank you for your support. So I'm open to any questions. I know I took longer, sorry. But if you ever have any questions on this or anything, you know, you can always call me. I'll be more than happy. So get any other questions, get.
No, you answered some of them.
All right, but if something comes up, don't say that, go for it.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
blessed to have a great group. And a great boss. It's not always that way, I'll tell you. I have a really good boss.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 3B, Mayor, we're talking about this for about 3.5 years now. It's been a long time. City charter amendments. We essentially have, so just as for a refresher for the audience and council, because some of you are new, we've been talking about, or been working on, we had a charter committee at one point, which there really is no more need because we basically did what we had to do, but making minor edits to our city charter to get it up in par with what state law says, as well as to what practices we do. So I included the examples, the resolution of examples of the ballot questions, but there are things like we no longer have a justice of peace. You know, we no longer have a board of health, you know, these things that are no longer relevant that shouldn't be in the charter. So these are minor edits that even if we didn't make the edits, we still have to follow state law anyway on some of them, for example. So it's not like we're doing anything substantive, but it is a lot of changes because the charter hasn't been cleaned up in decades. So it's they're changes, and we have to go back to the voters for that, because any change to the charter has to be made by the vote of the people. So we had a charter committee. We were working on it for years on and off, and then we finally got to this point where we basically have a resolution done, like the language we want. We still need to get it refined through the AG's office, but at this point, we really need to pick a date or a ballpark date of when we're going to do this. And we've been kind of pushing it out. Last year, we pushed it off to this year, and it's a big year, big election year. And I was talking with Clerk Whitaker here about when's the best option to actually hold this vote. Because as you can see, this ballot question, it has to be this several pages long. I mean, it's going to be a long ballot. It's going to be several pages. Because each question has to have an explanation, and you can't just say, do you accept the changes that are proposed, and you get to, each single change has to be a separate question. So it's gonna be along, so the idea was, do we tag this along to primary or a general election, which has its advantages and disadvantages, obviously one less election, but then you have a higher voter turnout, but then you have all this information in front of the voters and it's hard to explain. Or do you have a special election sometime this fall? September was a date we threw out. If we can have this vote, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to pick a special election date.
You could do that.
Yeah, so I'll let Nick take over what would be best for the clerk, because he's the city clerk, would be best from an election standpoint, a clerk standpoint, which date, he'll probably say none and wait till next year, and then we'll have the same situation probably.
Well, yes, kind of, but it's gotta be done, so you've all voted here, I've seen you voting, most of you. August primary is already a 2-page ballot. You have the Board of Regents and the Michigan State trustees and governor and whatnot. The county's given me a little pushback about having it on any ballot this year because it's the presidential and it's just, we have to do 9 days early voting now. So the consensus between me and the county clerk would be try to figure out a date to have just a special election for that. Then we wouldn't have to do the 9 days early voting at, thousands and thousands of dollars of expense. So for me personally, and the people that I get here to work here, that would be the cleanest route. Now, the clerk had reached out to the attorney for the Bureau of Elections at state level. And I've not received word back of what days we could, or if we're even allowed to just say, I want to do one on the first Tuesday in September. So I don't know yet, but push comes to shove, we can put them on August or November. The school always has one in May, generally, Shar-Am or even local stuff. That would be ideal, but we missed the date this year. We couldn't get the AG to approve it in time. So we're stuck with August, November, or a special one if we can get it.
So on a city election, you said we do have to follow then the new state early voting.
Well, that's only the 9 days early voting only applies to anything with state or federal.
Okay, so we don't have to worry.
No, if it was just our
Okay,
charter or just our council members, we wouldn't have to do 9 days. It would just be
okay.
normal voting procedures.
Could you do it the day after the general election, so you're all set up and?
Probably not the day, because I think it usually takes 10 days or so for the Board of Canvassers to canvass that election. So I wouldn't even be able to get my equipment unlocked or opened up to do it again but sometime between November and December. The problem with September, I was thinking about times, is as soon as we're done with the August, 2 weeks before they canvass it, I'm picking up, or the early part of September, I'm picking up ballots for the November already. So it would be very time crunch, but I guess if I had my preference between August and November, I guess to either one, but it doesn't matter. Probably November. August is generally a longer ballot.
What's the earliest you could do? What's the earliest you could do it?
May.
Well, not now, because of the
But not
Attorney
now.
General review needs what, 12 weeks?
Oh, right. The earliest one would be August.
So, but if we were gonna do a special date,
I'm not sure if the last I did any research on this, there was only 4 or 5 dates that the Bureau of Elections had set aside. Usually one in presidential primary, May school election, August, November, and then there's one other random one in there in May, but I just don't know the answer. We can just say, I want to do this in September or whatever, December. I just don't know the answer yet. So whatever we got to do to get it go through, we'll do it. And
So what would happen here is if you pick if you want to do it on a special election, a special day that's not part of the November general or August primary. If you generally pick a month, then we can come back to council with a formalized resolution when we have the approval from the AG with that specific date. So I guess right now, we really want to know from your perspective, whether you want to have it on a special day, or do you want to have it on a general?
What is the approximate cost?
Or, yeah, that's right.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, or May of 2025, like Nick was saying, push it off another year.
I don't want to keep kicking the can, but that would certainly simplify things, but I don't know, the cost, I've done this before when I build the Share-Am or whatnot. The 9 days early voting, we don't even know yet, because the county is hosting that countywide for all the townships and cities. And the last I had heard, the budget was somewhere around 40,000 just to do the 9 days and get the new equipment, but that was gonna be covered by the state. When I run just an election here for council and mayor, I don't know, right around $3,500, so it's not a monster amount of money. But it'll be it'll be difficult, even if that was on the ballot by itself. It'll be hard for voters to keep track when they walk up with all 6 ballots, and they gotta keep them in order. Then make sure they put them through the machine. It's gonna be a little hand holding, but that's why I wanted to veer away from the presidential. But whatever, however you guys decide, we can make it happen,
You're gonna get the best voter turnout in November.
which is a good thing.
If that, I mean, that's one thing to consider, how important is it that it's good voter turnout for that.
What I'm comparing to Nick is May.
No, I know I'll do whatever I'm guided to do, but you know, we've got a big push with the election fraud, especially in August and November. We're pushing really hard to,
I mean, and having read through the, the ballot, the proposed ballot language, and it's such a benign issue.
Yes, the charter.
Yeah, the charter, because we're literally talking about doing away with language that references the justice of the peace or the Board of Health, or the 1 year that from 1950 to 1951, something, it's, and it's and I'm not downplaying the importance. It's very important to get our charter updated and that language out of there and such, but it's just such a benign, non-controversial, at least in my opinion. In my opinion, it is.
that's kind of where my thoughts go to it, is if we take something very benign like that and then make it very controversial because it's lumped along with something that's extremely controversial. I would, I don't know. I guess that's the voters' rights to do that, but.
Well, I'm concerned that it's like, yeah, you get more turnout at a, November election, but doesn't mean that people are gonna pay any more attention to this issue than they would. I mean, I'm thinking it might make more sense to put it off until May of 25.
I think one of the advantages of putting it off to a special election day, whether it's May or not, is that if it's the only issue on the ballot, those who actually understand it or pay attention to it will come out and vote one way or the other. A lot of people in the presidential or primary, they're probably not even paying attention to local ballot issue.
And I think, it's really gonna be important to educate our community on this, because we want them to know and understand why this is important to do this. And I do see it getting lost and confused. This election cycle, because it's just gonna be a pretty crazy election cycle, I think, to say the least.
I just don't want to see something that is, like you said, very straightforward, it's just housekeeping, be politicized at a local level because of national politics.
Well, can we just say, let's look for a special election date? And if it can be before May, great. And if it can't, it can't, and we'll do it in May. I mean, let them find out when.
May of 25.
If we can't get it May of 24 at this point.
Yeah, we don't have time.
And hopefully we can do it before that, but that's something Nick has to find out.
Yeah, I mean, if we could do it in,
October.
you know, whenever the Attorney General, we got to have 90 days for them, so it's really, we're
I would
looking.
even be somewhat hesitant to do it between the primary and the presidential election, just because that's gonna be a pretty, I think, hyped up, tense time for folks. And, you know, we do want people to know what's going on with this and why this is necessary and.
Is there any harm in waiting till May of 2025 at this point? With it?
I'm sorry, I can't.
I'm sorry, I'm asking if there's any harm in waiting till May of 2025. I mean, if we're talking about February or May, and there's gonna be an election in May, most likely anyway, of 25, probably.
Even if there's not a school election for some odd reason, that is a valid date
Right.
approved by the Bureau of Elections.
I mean, I
that I
don't
can
think
tack
it's
on to.
huge. None of those are huge issues. They need to be cleaned up, but they don't alter how we run the city day to day at this point at all. I'm fine.
But in the meantime, I've got the email out to the
To see when.
attorney and, you know, because I've had this question before
Mhm.
when we were doing the Headley thing. You know, can we just do an election when we want to? And at that time it was no.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
So we get pretty good turnout for school elections.
Yeah, we do.
So that's, May is probably the date to shoot for.
Yeah, amazing data, and if we want to do it earlier, like in the
Yeah,
winter,
I mean, I'll still pursue it and bring it back to you guys when we get some more answers, but
shoot for May.
truthfully, in a very personal level, I'd rather do a couple elections with this new laws and figure out
Mhm.
if I'll be here in May of 2025.
So what do you need?
I think if we have a consensus to shoot for May 2025, if Nick wants to come back with a different idea for a different day, we'll do that. But that way Jim can start working with Attorney General.
It's a lot easier if we have a specific date in mind, then I can tell them that's when we're going to do it. And then that gears them up, we get in our system, and we get the approvals in place.
So I would say consensus to do the May 2025 at this point, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. same May.
Yes.
It'll be the first Tuesday or second Tuesday following the first Monday.
First Monday.
First Tuesday following the first. has to have a
We'll get the
Monday.
date, we'll get the date.
Gotta have one day in front of it.
No, that's confusing.
So, okay, yep, that'll work. And then we'll come back with, once we get, to go ahead from the Attorney General's office, an official resolution that you guys would just put on like a consent agenda to approve. Date, all right. That's- Yes, this is everything that the voters will be going.
Oh,
Very long.
Okay, item 3C, this is a street sweeper bid review. When we were going through the capital improvements plan and budget, there's a little discussion about the high cost of a street sweeper. And we told you we would go get different quotes from for used ones, new ones, as far as rental ones. And as you know, I won't go through my whole memo, but I went through some of the benefits of street sweeper, and talking about our current street sweeper that we have that's not designed for streets. But I'll get into the pricing, and Lucas is online too, so if you have questions for him, he'll answer something more specific. But we went through the My Deal program with the state. So the state, so let me step back. Our purchase and procurement policy usually has us get 2 quotes from 2 different companies. But when we go through My Deal, the state program, they have best contract with the best company, and they have the best deals on basically DPW equipment and other equipment that they use. So we would not probably find a better deal than that for the type of the quality we're getting. So we tend to go to My Deal when they have things, sometimes when we have like police cars or things like that, we go through different dealerships because there might be better deals at dealerships or something. But for these kind of equipment, we went through the My Deal. So this is state approved process. They already gone through the bidding process and the review process at the state level. So they've chosen the eligible company. But from the Elgin company, we picked out different models. We picked out the new one, 2021, 2017, and the rental rates. As you see, the cost of a 2024 is about $275,000. 2021 model, 245, and then the 2017, $205,000. A new street sweeper typically should last 30 or more years. I guess it all depends on how it's used and how many hours it's used. The 2021 model has 1,500 hours and the 2017 has 3,000 hours, and those are pretty substantial hours for a machine because they're rentals. So those are Elgin used those ones to rent out to other cities or other companies to use. Those used ones, the 2017, you get maybe 20 or more years, and the 2021, probably 25 years or so. Again, they should be a good, the number of hours is really that dictates how long these machines are gonna last. The rental, in my opinion, is probably the least desirable option. To rent is $6,300 a week or almost $15,000 a month. And we use usually these 3 or 4 weeks out of the year, sometimes more. And so if we were to rent it over the course of 30 years, we would essentially have paid for two street sweepers. It'd be well over the cost of buying two new street sweepers. So I don't think renting makes financial sense. So the real question here is just for council is, picking the newer model or, going with one of the used models. I did get, I'll have Lucas speak here a little bit, but I did get a little bit into our fund balance in the CIP. So we have about a little over $1 million in the equipment fund balance, and we've actually been saving for some big purchases for a while. This is one of them. We also anticipate a wheel loader and a snowplow that we need to purchase to replace in the next few years. Then, of course, we have a couple of standard police vehicle purchases. So I imagine by the end of 2027, we'll be bringing our fund balance for this down with these purchases, if they were all to go through, to between $400,000 and $500,000, which is about just under 100% of what that operating balance and that fund balance is for. And then we would take a break and build it up again a little bit before we make some larger purchases. So this is one of the benefits of having a capital improvements plan, because we can project on the future, where our fund balance is going to be and what kind of purchases we need. So I think our equipment fund is very healthy. I'm not really concerned about, whether we get a new one or use one, about what that's really going to do to our balance for that fund. That I'm kind of not, of course, you spend more money on something, it takes your money, and your fund balance down, but I'm not worried how that's going to affect our ability to do major purchases unless we have several breakdowns of machines. But that doesn't happen often. Usually they're little breakdowns that we can fix. Lucas, I don't know if you want to add anything to what I have in my memo here, or if you just want to take questions from the council.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
What are the features different in between the new and the used, Lucas?
There's some minor differences between the different years, but for the most part, they're very, very similar. There might be, I think I spec'd the one out with the 2 strobe lights for the new one and things like that, some small safety things. But for the most part, yes, they're very, very similar machines.
What's the warranty on them between the used ones and the new one? Is there a difference?
The new one has kind of a 1-year bumper to bumper. The used ones, they're not going to have that warranty for that year. But I think that with Bell Equipment and Elgin, they should all be, they have been maintained fairly regularly. I mean, it's not like it's either one of the used ones were just like abandoned machines or anything like that. They are maintained. But yes, you do get the 1-year warranty with the new one. And I think with the My Deal, I think it's a 3% discount, which equates to just under $8,500 discount, which brings it down to the $274. But they are expensive pieces of equipment for sure.
For the used ones, I mean, is it like buying a certified used car where they go through and really do a thorough job? You said they've been maintained, but do they go through and replace belts that are or brushes or, brooms or whatever that are worn out or tires,
It would be similar probably to a certified used car, but again, yeah, they're not gonna go through and replace all the belts on the engine, the hydraulic hoses. I'm sure that they would look at the filtration system. The brooms, if there was excessive wear on them, would probably be replaced. Tires would be checked, but there would be an allowable amount of wear on those to be sold as a used unit.
I mean, what one did Lucas, I don't even need to ask this, what one would you prefer to have? The new one? I mean, is that what you're thinking is the one that makes the most sense?
There's obviously some benefit to the new one, just because you don't have any of the wear on the engine or hydraulics or different things. You do get that 1 year warranty. But in reality, I think that it with the if we went used, I would prefer the 2021. But I think that either way, the 21 or the brand new one, I think there are some benefits to getting new. But I don't think that the 21 looks like it's in pretty darn good shape. I would want to go physically inspect it before we did make the final, write them a check or whatever and potentially look at, there might be more than one 2021 unit that could possibly be available. So I would definitely want to make sure we were getting the best one that was out there.
What's the $21,000 option content?
You're talking on the new one, that basically the whole list of what's below the 26. So that's going to be the hydraulic shutdown, the safety there. It's got a lot of it is seems fairly standard, but I mean they charge you for the manuals and things like that. It does have the upgraded light package. It does have the air conditioning. The limb guard on the right hand side goes around the mirror. The conveyor clean out, that's a maintenance thing. You can actually hook it up to a 2-inch hose like on a fire hydrant and flush the unit out. It's got an automatic lubrication system on it, so instead of crawling underneath the machine and trying to find 15 or 30 different lubrication points, they're all mounted on the side, so you can lubricate the entire machine from the side. It's simple stuff, but fairly standard. Oh, and the camera, I did forget it, that the option for the rear camera, that was an add-on. It doesn't come standard with the safety camera for the back.
Yeah, so this first line item is the price. All these other line items are the option content. All those additions.
Oh, all of those
All of those,
items
yeah.
are the, Understand.
So the warranty is an option.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think because it includes the parts and labor, I think that's probably the additional cost, and like it's not broke down line item by price. I could get more information on that probably. But yeah, that's what it is.
And looking at vehicles of any kind, the 261,000, they probably don't even have one of those there to even sell. They just make this one sound really cool. by breaking out these things, and it's gonna be $280,000 regardless.
Well, they also have, from what I was talking with Lucas, I mean, they have models that can cost up to $750,000. I mean, we're not, I don't know, yeah, so this is basically what Lucas, correct me if I'm wrong, but what is basically something that would meet our needs better than what we have right now. And without going overboard with what options we have.
And this is a piece of equipment that we're thinking we're gonna use maybe 300 hours a year.
Lucas, yeah, you can speak, we probably use it more than we're using it right now, which is, you know, depends on the year, but 3 or more weeks. But, you know, the idea is that if we have it, this one is meant for the streets, we use it more. Because the one that we have right now is really a warehouse parking lot.
Right.
Sweeper, so.
I appreciate that what we have isn't really,
Right, just I'm trying to bring up to why we'd use it more if we had one section in the streets.
Yeah, it's capable of a lot more. So, you know, we can't use the other one if anything's wet at all. It won't pick up wet debris. It won't pick up, you know, size. If someone spills gravel out of a truck hauling stuff, the other one won't pick up the gravel. We have to sweep it up. We have to do that. This we could run down and get, you know, just sweep it up all at once. It also is capable of, I'm sure you've seen the DPW in the fall when we're doing fall cleanup and picking up leaves, where there'll be a guy pushing the leaves up out of the curb so we can suck them up so the drains don't get plugged. This machine's also capable of picking up the wet leaves that are in the gutter, which would just make it's much more useful. So I'd say for sure we'd get a lot of use out of it. In a whole different variety of things that we can't right now with what we have.
and what you're saying too is there's the 2021 would do the same things though, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Theoretically, the 2017 would do the same things as well. It has 3,000 hours on it already,
Mhm.
so.
Just 10 years of our use.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's 10 years. of
Right,
our
so
use.
it's 7 years old, so actually, it sounds like it was used less than,
No,
Used more.
yeah, used more, yep,
it's used more,
right.
right?
One thing I think about when Lucas and DPW needs equipment, or Kyle, or even the fire department, and everything's expensive. But we have plow trucks that these guys take very, very good care of our stuff, and we have plow trucks that are 20+ years old that we take care of and maintain them, and we keep them. And then, you know, we sell them to the airport. So 30 years from now, we'll be not having this conversation, but that sweeper will still be relatively new by anybody's standards.
And that's a diesel operated, it's fueled by diesel, correct? I'm assuming, yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And I think you mentioned before, or was written somewhere, Lucas, that you're thinking the lifetime hours on that engine are between 10 and 15,000? Did I
Yeah,
understand that?
on the engine, yeah, a diesel engine, especially that one, it's very common John Deere engine. They'll run for a long, long time. I don't foresee having any issues with the engine with any amount of hours that we could put on it. So it's not like a lawnmower that at 3,000 hours it's junk. It's still going to have some life to it. It's just, you know, as you get into those hours, 3,000 hours on, you know, like I said, it's the hydraulic hoses, the tires, it's the small stuff that, like I said, we'll maintain it, and we'll fix what needs to, but we just run into that sooner.
Also, what they need to make a decision.
Public comment on our street sweeper?
What are you doing? What would we do with the other one that is good for parking lots? Whatever. Doesn't,
we will attempt to auction that off, like we do with our other surplus equipment. If we don't get any significant bids around here, we usually we can send it out to like a statewide or even a nationwide auction service to see if we can get a recoup a little bit. I don't foresee us getting much money for that unit. And I think it's a 2001 or 2002. I think it was about 60,000 then. So its value would be very diminished at this point.
One thing else, we probably had more work to Lucas, but whether we buy a new one or use one, but especially a new one, if it's around for a long time, our downtown, like if we get a decent street sweeper, we could actually, I'm probably more work, and I haven't talked to Lucas, but if we sweep the streets down there once a week, you know, you go to some communities where they wash the sidewalks, they sweep the streets, and downtown gets the cigarette butts and stuff out. If we get a nice machine, I think that's something that would be beneficial to our downtown area to keep it clean. Just, they'll probably shoot me, but.
No, put in our work.
I went to Gatlinburg, for example, and you know, like once a week, they wash the sidewalks down and the street sweeper goes through and their downtown's clean, you know, even though they have a lot of people down there. And I think if we get a nice machine that lasts a long time, well past when all of us, well, not all of us, but some of us are, we're gonna be long gone, but that thing will still be ticking.
can you drive it in the 4th of July parade?
Yeah, Kyle, and you're right about that. With it would make that type of situation very possible, just because like with the unit we have now, it goes about 8 miles an hour. So it takes a long time to get down there, and then you have to do that. This thing actually, it'll go 20 miles an hour, so you can get right down there, hit downtown. It'll be so much more effective. But yeah, that is something that we could incorporate into a much more regular schedule. And you can use it after it's rained or when it's wet. It functions, you know, at more times than the other one does.
I'm leaning toward the new one, just put it out there to bring the, for the difference in the price from 21 and 24. And I think, you know, Lucas knows what he's talking about, what he needs. I'm gonna make a motion. If we're done talking, make a motion that we okay the new 2024 street sweeper.
I'll second.
Mike Behrman,
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Pat O'Gara,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Thanks, Lucas.
Thank you. Yep, thank you.
There's a lot of information. Alright. Okay, we're gonna have the next topic. It's, we have the Historical Society here, for 2 agenda items. The first one is about renewal or new lease. It's essentially a renewal. It's a lot of similar terms, but, they're asking for a new lease per se. But with this Historical Society, since 2006, the Historical Society has been leasing out old city hall from the city. That lease's expiration date is supposed to expire in 2032, but there's a provision in the contract that if, you know, the parties want to start talking about a renewal before then we can. So, the Historical Society, and I'll let Kristen talk, soon here, but, really they came to us with two concerns mostly. One was the term and length of the lease, but the other one was some insurance provision and the language in the lease about trying to get, refine that insurance language to talk about, you know, what happens if the building, you know, there's a fire or is destroyed or something like that, what happens with the proceeds of insurance money and the process for potentially, building a new historical or building a new city hall or building there, and that could or could not house the historical society. So we kind of worked through that. It's been several months we've been working on this, but those were really the major differences you see here. The original lease was 2006 to 2032. Right now, this proposed lease, as the Historical Society has asked, is for a 15-year term with the option to renew for 2 10-year periods. That would took a total of up to 35 years if the renewals went through. And then, as I mentioned, updating provisions on insurance coverage, especially in regards to if there's a fire or total loss of the building. And Jim can go in more detail about, because he worked quite a bit on crafting, the language and going back and forth with the board with attorneys from the Historical Society to get that language right. But that's where we're at. So the rest of the lease is pretty standard language, is pretty good. They do lease it for $10 a year, but they are required to do all the maintenance and repairs on their own. So that's where that trade-off really comes in. Whereas if we were the landlord of like a for-profit one, we get a profit, but we'd be responsible for all the maintenance and the repairs. So that's kind of, and also they're a nonprofit. So that's why that lower rate. We have a similar rate with schools for the Ottawa Stadium and other things. So it's kind of standard for what we do. So Kristen Balog's here representing the Historical Society. So if you want to give a couple minutes just to talk about your session.
So hi, my name is Kristen Balog. I'm the Executive Director, the Harbor Springs Area Historical Society. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to our newest employee, Cindy Shire, who just joined us 3 weeks ago as Deputy Director. And I'm also joined by our staff member, Jeff Upward, who joined us 2 years ago. And I have a trustee here today, Melissa Wyatt-Trollick, and several other volunteers and supporters in the area, and hopefully you all are as well. So I just want to give just a really brief summary, because there's always somebody new attending these meetings. And so I think it's nice for people to understand the relationship that we have with the city related to this lease. And because it actually, we have been working on this since 2021. So it has been lengthy conversations, and not because of conflict, but just because of the important investment that we both have in this building and what it means for us to preserve it and to still be using it as a functional asset to our whole community. And so in 2008, we opened December 2008 after investing $1.75 million into the facility to get it where it is right now. And we have 250,000 of that is in the exhibits that are open to the public by donation only at this time. And 1.5 was for the construction of the building. And our ongoing utilities at that building run $20,000 a year. We are open year round. And right now we're looking at the needs that we might be facing for a new roof replacement and a lot of rotted wood. And so we've gotten bids on that for about $300,000. And we're expecting that to come in the next 2 to 10 years is being really generous. I think 5 years is our goal. We're starting to create a reserve so that those repairs can be done. We also have 5 furnaces and 5 air conditioning units that are also 15 years old. So we're preparing for replacements and that might come down the line there. And additionally, we've invested $23,000 in total insurances that we pay back to the city. So we do, to Victor's point, what we've been trying to work out is we are paying the cost of insuring our building by reimbursing the city. And so we just wanted some assurance that our investment was protected. So we're pleased with where we've landed with this new lease that is being presented to you today. And the idea of having some shorter terms gives the oncoming board members some freedom and flexibility to make decisions for a sustainable future for our organization. So to sign a 30-year lease now, like that we're living in right now, that was a long decision that somebody made for a lot of unknowing people and a lot of variables. So we're just more comfortable with the terms that we propose here. So we just thank you for your consideration. We certainly love taking care of the building. It is a landmark in our community, and hopefully, like many of our historic buildings, will continue to be a functional daily building like our library and our post office and First Community Bank and so many of the buildings that we actively are using on a daily basis. That is a rarity in a small community like ours.
So at this point for council is, to discuss the terms of the lease and authorize me to sign it unless you have any suggested changes or amendments to the lease.
Okay.
Any public comment? Is there any public comment, please? No? Comments at the table?
I just have a little bit of, question, really, I want to get back to you guys. The 15 years, I have no problem, the 15-year thing, and I think the lease is fine, I read it. Help me understand the 2 10-year extensions. Does the city have an option after 15 years? And how does that work when there are like possible 10-year extensions?
So the language, what it basically says is if the Historical Society wants to renew, the city agrees to negotiate in good faith to extend it, but absent good cause would agree to extend it.
Okay.
Okay, so if there had been a breach along the way, that would be
Right,
good cause not to renew. If things appeared to be, if there was some unforeseen circumstance that would make a renewal inappropriate for the city, you would have the opportunity to withhold your approval.
But you would have to have a reason not to extend it.
That's correct.
The city would have to have a reason,
That's correct.
but the Historical Society could choose not to.
They could
I mean,
choose not to.
am I right? Am I understanding?
Yeah,
that
so,
way? Right.
our intention is long-term. I think both parties' intention is long-term. We like being there. They like having us as tenants.
Yeah.
But I think that we have to do what's best for our nonprofit organization. So if there was some financial inability to continue, we have to protect our collection and move to a smaller facility, or what tragic thing might occur that we wouldn't be able to continue. And so that was sort of the, just the safety point for us, to just that the trustees know that the intent is to continue, but we do have that pause that we can consider if we can't afford to do
And I
that.
guess I feel like maybe the city would need to have that same kind of option. we're coming off a long lease on some property right outside of town that, when we got to that, I'm like, why did these people make this decision for 40 years? Same thing you're
That's
saying,
what we're
Kristen.
saying.
I mean, we're saying the same thing, but I feel like I'm not the legal expert on how to write leases, but I feel like this says the Historical Society can say we want to be done, but the city really can't. And I guess my question would be, is there a way so that both parties would be able, I mean, if in 15 years, the city decides they need that building for something. You see where I'm coming from on it?
Sure.
Yeah, that's really my only concern with it.
In our, my comment on that would be, at that time, whether it's a month from now, 5 years from now, or right now, as I sit here, when we take that $1.75 million and we amortize it over our existing 28-year lease, I think it is, an odd number. It's costing us over $60,000 to be there just at that initial investment, let alone the $20,000 a year for utilities. So at that time, that would be a hardship for us, because we have invested by then, for sure, within 15 years, in new growth. For sure, we've replaced wood and had it painted. So that leaves us, again, vulnerable in our expenditures that are coming down the line right now in the next 5-year window, that we are less inclined to make that investment if we are putting ourselves back in risk of losing our lease in 15 years. So I think that is, we've looked at it so many different ways. We didn't ever look at it that way.
Yeah.
But I think that would be, my board's response is, now, wait a minute, because we are embarking on a window of time that we are going to be again reinvesting in that building at very large sums of money. So, that would be a hardship for us, for sure.
I guess a question for Jim maybe would be is, what really is good cause, and that, I know it's not 100% clear, but we know that it's fact-based, but what if the city absolutely needed that building for something, to do a city operation, is that, maybe that's.
Well, if it was imperative and was going to prejudice the city in some capacity, measurable capacity, that would be good cause.
So good cause isn't because you just want to lease it to somebody else, but if you feel like there's like Jim just said, like a real need.
If there was a prejudice that would result to the city, a measurable prejudice, then that could be good cause.
That's my only hesitation, Kristen, is I don't want to tie the hands of the city for 35 years either. On the flip side of exactly what you're saying. That's my hesitation with it.
And I think we were definitely needing the assurance of the 25, 30 years so that our monies are, we feel that we've invested our monies in our own space without the risk of it being yanked out from underneath us. And that is definitely a sticking point. So if the language would need to be changed to reflect your suggestion, I'm gonna have to say we'd be back to meeting with my board. I would not have board approval to.
Yeah, no, and I
sign
understand, of course.
Yeah, that would be a hardship.
When I'm looking, because really you're asking for a 35-year lease.
Yes.
I mean, that's really what these 15 and 2 10s are. So that's all.
They're the opportunity, the reason for the 15 and 2 10s are the opportunity of another board of directors to see where we're at financially, to know if they can take on another roof repair or another. So I mean, in the end, you might end up with a building that's in great review, shape that we can't maintain. But I think we just felt it was a protection of us to not overextend ourselves, knowing that we really have invested so much in it already. I don't, from our perception, there isn't a loss at the city, because in 15 years, it's not going to look worse than it does now with our plans of maintenance. So we didn't consider it from
I'm
our
just
standpoint.
needing to look at the other side of it.
Yeah.
So.
I'll make a motion that we renew the lease for the Historical Society.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Kathy Marshall.
Is there any discussion?
Oh, any more discussion?
Motion.
I guess my only issue is simply if the city decided to, if the city had good cause or got the building back, I mean, is there any dream in anybody's plans of what we would do with it?
Not at this time.
No.
Yeah, no, I don't.
It's worth bringing up
Yeah.
the city side of it.
Yeah, okay.
I'll just add that this issue of the renewal was a lengthy debate.
Sure it was.
And this was compromise language. And it was, the city was not in favor of giving an actual complete option to the Historical Society to renew. So there were conditions put in on their option. So but this is how we got to this point. This was a debate that went on for months, maybe a year. And so this is where we are with it. And I totally understand your position, Nancy, and But this is, the parties worked to come
Yeah.
up with this language, and this is the best we can do. I think if you want to renew with them at this point in time, otherwise we go back to the table.
Well, and I think your explanation of good cause helps, because when I read a lease like that, and it looks very one-sided in terms of renewal, not in terms of what you're willing to do for the building, but I'm always a little leery of that. I think with a good cause where it's, if the city really needed that building for something. If the city hall burned down and they said, we gotta have a city hall or something, you know, I don't like to tie future council's hands particularly, because especially 35 years out. But I mean, I think I can live with this, with the understanding, you know, that you share. And we've always worked incredibly well with the Historical Society, which is part of it. So
Good cause is probably a pretty high bar, I would
I would
imagine.
imagine.
And if
Yeah.
not, it ends up in the courts,
Yeah.
so.
But, and I don't foresee that, but
Yeah.
if we really needed it for some reason, I wouldn't want it. So I'm okay. So we've got a motion on the table.
I got a motion and a second, so I'll take a roll call. There's no other discussion. Jamie Milky,
Yes.
Michael Behrman,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes,
Matt Guerra,
Yes.
and Nancy Roundell.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughtful consideration. That was an excellent, excellent discussion.
Conversations we had.
sometimes we have it from.
All right, next item is also a historical society request, but let me get there. This is the lease, all these extra attachments to it. All right, the Blackbird Museum agreement. The Andrew J. Blackbird Museum is owned by the city. It was deeded to the city, I want to say sometime maybe 75 years ago. It's been a while. And in that deed, the city has to maintain and operate that building, the Andrew J. Blackbird House, as a museum. As you know, for a while, in the couple decades there in the 2000s, the city, the chamber was there as well, located out of half the building, and we had our part-time staff. We also had a Blackbird Historical Committee, but a part-time staff, Joyce Shaganabi, who recently passed away, but she was our part-time staff there for a while. We also had, I think, probably staff before her as well. But at that point, when that staff retired and we reviewed the lease, the deed language, and it said that if it's not being operated as a museum, that it reverts back to some state agency, or the one that's listed in the deed doesn't exist anymore. So as who it goes back to, it's not quite clear exactly, but it's clear that we have to use that as a museum, and it shouldn't be used as anything but a museum. It's a historical building, one of the oldest buildings that we have, and it's very significant for the community. So a couple of years ago, we reached out to the Historical Society and asked to have them be the third experts. We're not city staff, we don't have the expert knowledge to manage a collection. We can open the building and keep it open, but it's always going to have someone there, staff that knows something about the collection there. So we got an agreement with them. We have for $34,000 annually, and that's covered through our existing 50,000 or so budget that we have for the historical fund. So they manage the collection and keep it open a few days a week. And so that relationship has been going well so far. But now the Historical Society had an idea, and I'll let Kristen present on that idea, but it's basically to get a full-time position that would be the difference of the cost of that full-time position and what we pay now for $34,000 would be split between the Historical Society and the city. So $15,000 additionally from the city, as well as $15,000 additionally from the Historical Society to fund that position, to have a full-time person on presence there. I do want to get into a little bit, we mentioned this during budget season, but that, Nick and I had some ideas about getting rid of the Blackbird fund and incorporating it back into the general fund, because it is general fund, it's funded by the general fund anyway. And then to take those costs, become general fund operating costs for the books, and then any reserve reserve, any capital improvements that need to be done to it will be pulled in the capital improvements reserve fund balance that we have. We took away, we borrowed $120,000 or so from the historical fund to put into the general fund a while ago. So the other option is we keep the historical fund and put that money back in there and let it grow and, you know, either fund this position or the improvements to the Blackbird Museum, if that's something that council wants to do, through that money or through general fund money. Either way, it's all general fund money. It was just had been earmarked at a certain time for the historical fund. And I think it's good to be cognizant of that we have, we had money up probably a total of $180,000 in that reserve fund for the Historical Society. So that's something just to keep in that, like an asterisk, that whether we put it in the general, roll it back in the general fund, there was a substantial amount of money that had built up in that fund. So I guess really, after Kristen presents here a little bit, but really, you know, the question to consider for council is, you know, is it something they want to see as a full-time position like this for the museum, or is it, are we satisfied with, you know, the part-time position? So Kristen, if you want to kind of take away with what your thoughts were.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for hearing me out. I want to be clear that I am here to begin a conversation. I have permission from my board of directors to just begin a conversation with you. So please know that I'm not seeking a motion. I'm not seeking a yes or no today, but when we embarked on this partnership 2 years ago, that the Historical Society would manage the museum, we would keep it open. Jeff has been working over there and we've kept it open Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays now for 2 years. We've seen a 27% increase in visitors in those 2 years. And we have also managed all of the promotions of that. And it's just organic. We've tagged it onto everything we do at the museum across the street. However, at a part-time level, we're not maximizing its capacity. We're not really telling the full history of our community. And so it's an asset that we need to continue mining. And that was something that I talked to council about 2 years ago, when the fund got shifted for other uses. You know, I was here and I don't know, sparks flew all around me, but I definitely heard that loud and clear and wanted to sort of keep my eye on where those funds were going as was related to the Blackbird Museum. So I've given you a little bit of a wordy presentation that you can study a little bit more. But for the most part, the idea here came when we were interviewing for Cindy's job. Not only was I inspired by the perfect candidate for this job, I also feel like after 2 years, I'd like to know from City Council what your goals are, so that in the cusp of developing the historical corridor and wrapping up the Shea Museum, which is fully funded by our fundraising, and we've succeeded in the AHA and Shea Park. We are renovating a Shea locomotive, and as the historical corridor does develop from our perspective in our seats, we just don't want to leave the Blackbird Museum behind. So I have to kind of keep looking back at City Council saying, you know, come on, you need to come along with us. And so I'm here today just to kind of have that conversation more than we've had in the past, more than saying I'd like to renew a part-time agreement, that we keep the doors open Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'd like to learn more about what your thoughts are. And I think the best way to do that is to put some ideas on paper to ramp up the proposal. We are up for renewal in April is what we agreed to extend our current agreement. And so I think now's a good time to think about it, give Victor some time to think about finances, and he and I can talk a little bit deeper. But the proposal in phase 3 that I have laid out here, because we are in the middle of phase 2, involves doing more for the organization, more for our history, more for the Blackbird Museum. It means taking the displays to the next level, begin creating content And the person that would fill this position, as you can see there, the new coordinator would preferably have a working knowledge of Odawa tribal heritage. And that is the key to phase 3 and to getting us a little bit further along on what's the city's goals for the Blackbird Museum. I think everyone in the community knows the value of the Blackbird Museum. It is the oldest structure in our downtown community. And for those additional funds, there's bulleted items here that we would intend to do and to carry our whole community to the next level of educating. And the large gap that is missing in the history that we tell at the museum, but we can't tell it quite as well as somebody with some complementary knowledge to the knowledge that our programming coordinator has, and to develop this museum to be the asset that it should be in the historical corridor. So I've thrown some numbers, some salary ranges. We would take responsibility for managing that employee. It brings along a lot of responsibility for us financially, because we would be paying payroll taxes, benefits that would extend beyond the numbers I'm showing here. It brings on medical care, retirement, but these are numbers that show that we would be willing to generate some of the fundraising, which we have not offered to do at this time. We have covered promotional, marketing, educational aspects of it, but this shows you how serious our organization is. I have unanimous support from my board to begin this conversation with you. They've seen these numbers. I believe that I have a candidate that's qualified to do this. I would begin that conversation. And I just kind of want to know from the city where we're at. Do I put this on the shelf? Or do we keep it open and keep talking about it and not leave the Blackbird Museum behind in what we're doing all around it to draw community support, preservation, and become, what eventually is going to be a regional leader in locomotive history, the steel industry. The Shea House is going to draw a large crowd, and it just makes sense that the Blackbird Museum kind of comes along with us on that journey. So.
Yeah, and I didn't mention in here too that, in case there's any questions from council, that building was deeded to us. We can't just get rid of the building. I mean, I don't know how that would work, but, so this is our responsibility, and our responsibility to keep it open. So we have to figure something. To what extent is really what I guess Chris is getting here, what's council's vision, to what extent do we want to operate this museum? And I mentioned in here, financially, from a financial perspective, $15,000 is really not a whole lot at the overall budget, but it does chip away, just like any continually ongoing operating expense chips away how much we put in our reserves fund. So that's just something to keep in mind, but that goes with any additional operating expense.
Sure. Just to quickly elaborate on that, what Victor just said. I think there's a big maybe still is a big misconception between the Blackbird Museum, the historical fund in the city budget, and the historical society. The money we do not owe the historical society $125,000, nor did we ever. What we did do every year for probably since 1964, when this was deeded to the city, we set up a budget and said, we're going to track it over here in this little fund. So we were transferring anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 to $75,000 a year from taxpayer dollars in the general fund. Just automatic, here, taking the money right out of the tax money, putting it right over here. So our auditors had asked years past, why can't we just incorporate this into the general fund under, like we have leaf rubbish pickup, we have police department, we have city clerk, just have historical society. But now in looking back, I just read maybe it's better to leave that fund there. But the numbers that we're talking here, we've historically transferred those monies over that budget season for decades. And where we end up coming up with this $125,000-$150,000 surplus, we weren't having any wages. You know, the lady that ran it from there, we're still transferring money for wages. We never paid her because she wasn't working. So that money that came back to the general fund is money truthfully that probably should never have been transferred anyway, because there was no expenses there to cover it.
Mhm.
So something like this, we'd still be back budgeting the same way we were 15 years ago. Transferring over 50 grand or whatever it works out to be. So, I mean, it's just, we're getting back to where we were when we had a full-time employee, if you guys chose to go down a path like this.
And I just want to thank you for explaining that, because I do get a lot of questions. There have been some rumble in the community that think the city took $140,000 from the Historical Society. Trust me, I back you up all the way. No, you did not. We don't share the same funds. It is a historical fund. It's not the Historical Society. So we do, and we are clear on that and have had to educate some, really outspoken community members. I have assured them that no funds have been taken from us. We are here to collaborate with the city to help you develop the plan, and these funds would go along. One component we're not sharing here that we shared 2 years ago was that we did invest the portion of our funds of the 34,000 2 years ago. We used a portion of those funds and met with exhibit designers, and we have drawings. So we have reinvested the money that the city has been paying us into developing a plan for the future. And that is, again, what we would do with these funds. We would just extend the hours and have a person more focused on what that future plan looks like. So we are continuing to reinvest the $34,000 that's coming to us. This just takes it to a different level, gets us closer to a final plan and closer to the drawings that we had presented 2 years ago. And I would kind of revive all of those if this is the direction that council wants to go.
Public comment?
Public comment.
Public comment.
Oh, yes, a comment, okay. I'm a supporter of this proposal because I think the Blackbird Museum is a gem that has really not been appreciated in that way. I think she is sort of forgotten downtown. And the Shea House has a voice, the museum has a voice, the Blackbird Museum deserves a voice. And I think someone who has the capacity to give that voice with a history in knowledge of the Odawa who were here and who lived in that building. I just think that's an extraordinary thing. The family lived in that building, and I would like to see that come alive again and have a voice like the other buildings do.
Thanks for your comment. Can you also get your name and address for the clerk, the record?
Sure, my name is Susan Ford, and I live at 4400 Gully Road in Harbor.
Thank you. You got that, Nick?
Oh, yeah.
Well, do you like museums?
Right, at present, we're, the city contributes 34,000. And, you're anticipating that the costs would be about 60,000 of if taking on a full-time person or keeping it open full-time and proceeding with some of the bulleted plans. And our additional the city's additional expense would be $15,000. That would be split.
We would also be incurring, I have permission to present to you that we would be willing to incur that same additional expense. We have never, that's a responsibility that we just simply don't have as an obligation, but we feel it's that important that it will become our support and financial endeavor to join you in that match, that fund.
But the board has not voted on this or
The board,
taken
right.
action on it, correct?
They know that I'm coming to you with that dollar amount. But until we know where the city's at, I would have to go back, that's correct, for a formal approval. And I'm just going to make a slight correction in the term cost. This is really the investment for the future. So it's not, I just want to make sure that we're clear that we're not focusing that $64,000 equals a person. It is a person plus the content for the display panels. There's some capital improvements that will be happening inside that dollar amount. So it's not just a salary. You didn't just pay for time and it's out the window. There's capital improvements that would be happening in there. So there's progress to be made in the drawings. There's content creation. So you're getting a step closer to your improved exhibits. And when I presented that 2 years ago, we presented 3 different levels of improvements for those exhibits, and they range from $75,000 up to $275,000. So I am coming to you today to say, let's start investing in one of those plans so we can improve those exhibits and get that museum up and running. And I think a way to do it is to start by programming and educating and to build the audience so that the inspiration is there. And then we're opening up doors for possibilities of writing grants. And we're just opening up other funders. If you build it, they will come, and this is, I think it's not a huge risk. It's just the next step. And it's all about the people. Programming is all about the people. And when I interview the right person, that is why I'm here today. As one person inspired me. Kind of emotional. I want you guys to do
Having
it.
said that, I've always, something might happen and that person might, not be able to.
I'll take that challenge. I'll find another one. There's more than one person in our community that is passionate about the Odawa heritage, and there are hundreds of thousands of visitors who want to know about it. And some of these stories just aren't our story to tell at the museum. We'll get there if nothing else happens. But when you have the Blackbird Museum, I sit in my office and stare at it all day, every day, and walk by it. And we're inside, we have meetings in there, and the programming that we could do is off the charts. And it is, I know that the city will struggle to, it's just not organic for the city to do it. I mean, let us do it. It's way easier. We already know how we want to do it. And so I just kind of want to move a step further down the road than we were 2 years ago. I don't want to come in April and say, we want 36,000 instead of 34,000. And then we're just voting on 2,000 and it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And meanwhile, the Shea House is up and running and, the locomotive is happening. I'll be back with that. But right now I'm just focused on this asset that is a sure thing. So,
I mean, look at the success that's already happening in that building. It's outstanding. And this is one more step.
I have the private funding. I have mine 15.
Okay.
So, and my board knows that I have my 15, but I'll just hold it if I have to. Or I'll use it for some other educational purpose. It won't waste, but I come across people who are passionate about it. I can't take on the financial responsibilities of the city, but I am a good partner. So again, I'm not looking for you to say yes to this. If you're inspired to, I'll take a yes and I'll go back and we'll keep noodling it. Or we can decide that we'll meet again in April. But I just kind of want to inspire you. I want the community to hear it, read it in the meeting minutes. And just kind of have a pulse on where council is with the future of the Blackbird Museum.
I think it sounds like a worthwhile investment. And at this point, you're just looking for our general thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, so when I came for the AHA, everybody shook their head and said, you go, girl, this is gonna be great. And then I just leave with the pep in my step and keep charging ahead. But and I think Victor and I need to meet, and I want to give you all time to see what that number does, that $49,000 does to your budget, the extra 15,000. If you need time to do that, I want you to be a part of the conversation. People support what they help build, and I want you to help build it. I want the community to hear that we're doing this, and I want people to be involved.
For Kristen, every day is game day. So, you know, she's on this.
Victor, are you looking for guidance from us as to how
Well, either
to?
or, either as Kristen said, either let's just get your general thoughts, or if you're comfortable with going forward as proposed, if that's what you're comfortable with.
Because our current agreement expires in April, right?
Yeah.
So we
We
need
want to
to
get ahead of that. Because
Right.
we definitely want to have an agreement in April if we can.
Okay, and how long a term agreement were you thinking about?
That's a good question. I forgot to talk to Victor about.
Okay.
Again, I'll just throw out my comment. If you did approve the 49 now, I would begin to move forward and come back to you with a timeline. I wouldn't fast track this. I would do it very thoughtfully with a very organized plan, maybe some programming mixed in, a little more detail. I do think that it's beneficial to me to get a yes moving forward from my board. And perhaps it's beneficial to council to know that we are committed to this. This isn't a 1 year. It's sort of like the lease. Like I don't ever make a plan for just a year. I'm planning the future of our community. This is a community project. It's a benefit to the whole community. It is in perpetuity in my vision from the Historical Society's plan. It's part of our plan into perpetuity. But I do think that it's probably a good idea to not have to come back every year and start inching up that number. If we can do a 2-year plan,
Kathy, I think I can talk to you a little bit about that. What we have to keep in mind is whatever new or additional operating expense that the city requires, regardless whether it's this or something else, is that we have 4 years left on the public safety millage. And we don't know if the next council is going to go up for renewal for that, or if it does go up, if it passes, we don't know. So if we don't have that extra mill that's from public safety, then the public safety has to come back out from that 1 mill has to come back from the general fund, from the general tax levy, which again, that takes away several $100,000 of operating. So then at that way, I don't want to get a situation where we're committed to something for several years and we have to then decide what we want to cut from some of the more essential services, if that. So I think a 2-year lease, given our current millage situation, is reasonable.
Mhm.
2-year agreement. I get 1 year, 1 year doesn't, but you also want a 2-year, something short also for trialing out, you want to give yourself something in 5 years, for 5 years.
right?
And
We
see,
would
maybe
have
it's
to
not working.
create a 2-year plan then,
Yep.
instead of just a 1-year plan. So our development of the exhibit would be further down the line than what I'm stating here.
Okay.
So I have to noodle that a little bit as well.
Currently, the city is responsible for all the maintenance on the building.
Yep, we do. There's not a whole lot that goes on right now with the building, but we do a little bit. One of the things that we did recently, it wasn't a council decision, but we had to remove a tree that was on a private property that had limbs fall down on the Blackbird porch before. So we had to, spend that expense, to get rid of a tree so it didn't harm the building.
But we
shared that, we shared. part of the
share
cost.
that cost with you as well.
Because
We
of the
gave
share
back
house.
some of our funding to go toward that as well.
So we do the general maintenance, but it's a small, relatively small building. There's not a whole lot that goes on there.
Gonna need a roof, so.
Oh, yeah, they will, yep, it's gonna need a roof.
Does the,
We'll trade your roofs.
does the, Historical Society have any interest in doing a long-term lease on the building?
We can't.
No, you
I don't know if we can.
That's correct, we can't. So and I don't know that, well, I would not be able to talk the board into hearing me out on that one, I don't think at this juncture. But I don't think, it's not gonna make a difference in the way we interact with the property and the life that we bring to it, utilizing the space as an educational, it is, that we get calls from the chamber. There's somebody here, they want to go in the Blackbird Museum, and we just go across the street, we'll open it at any time. So we will certainly function in the space as we do in the museum,
Well,
but I don't think we can use it.
that part of, that's such a synonymous part of Harbor Springs, our whole region, Andrew Blackbird and, we have an elementary school named after him, as Shea as well, and Odawa culture is so, and heritage is our areas that is so important, so.
We have 2 tribal members on our board right now. And we've always had tribal members on our board, but we went through a little gap there in finding somebody to make the commitment. And we have 2 right now. One is a tribal elder, and Melissa here is the Michigan, she's the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. And she does education as well. And she's on our board and has really helped us this year expand our Odawa educational programs. And we just have the perfect momentum right now and the vision to bring the Blackbird along with us and do it in smaller increments instead of just that big, hey, we're gonna charge out here like we're doing at the Shea House. The exhibits at the Shea House are $700,000. We are charging ahead with that big lump sum to get that done like overnight. I think we have an opportunity with the Blackbird Museum to do this, that it's a healthier transition for all of us, for us managing the time and the personnel, and perhaps for the city's budget, and to see the development transitionally instead of me coming with a large proposal and a huge construction project. So we have talent, and I have confidence now in being able to do this. I did not have the resources to even offer this 2 years ago that we do now.
Sounds good. I think it's worth exploring further.
Yeah, I think more discussion with Victor and maybe come back in a month or.
With an agreement, so finalized agreement,
some sort of
more detailed agreement.
Okay. If there's any concerns that you'd like to share with me, that helps me make progress. I always say I'd like to hear concerns from the community or any of you so that we can work through those right away, and it just helps us collaborate more successfully.
I think one thing that we can do when we talk, Kristen, is find a way to, like you kept track of the 27% increase of of traffic there. Kind of keep track of, you know, in detail those improvements and the changes that are happening because of the investment. That's kind of really important to knowing whether it's a benefit to the city, it's worth the investment. So we can talk about what those measures and metrics are when we get together. but
Okay,
it's something
and
to my
just,
recommendation.
we do keep track of where people are from, and I have Australia, Germany, England, New York, Virginia, Massachusetts, Maryland, North Carolina, Colorado, Ohio, Illinois, Utah, Texas, California, Florida, Wisconsin, Georgia, Connecticut, Minnesota, Tennessee, Missouri, Indiana, Oklahoma, and of course, Michigan. So people are, it's a destination for a lot of people. So,
And I've talked to everyone.
Jeff has met every one of them and got their signature. So we're building a database as well.
I think that is kind of something to be good to show complementary. That's what's gonna be the deal breaker as far as whether it's worth it or not.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, and please visit me with any thoughts.
Thank you. All right, so before we go into closed session, we'll do city manager's report and hold the new city business. So city manager report. A few things. First, one thing that's not on here is that next council meeting is on February 19th. Because of the negotiations, they added that President's Day, they added that as a holiday. We are still gonna have a council meeting. Nick and I are still gonna be here, but City Hall will be closed that day, just FYI. So if you need to get in touch with us when we send out the council packet, just know that City Hall will be closed, but my phone will be available. We'll be here for a council meeting. But I don't want to take any more council meetings off the city calendar just because there's another holiday. But anyway, just FYI. We did meet with the Everards to discuss the substation. We talked about kind of the next steps of what we needed in order to you know, try to get some sort of deal finalized. One is we absolutely need to do, our electrical engineer needed to do a topographic survey of the site that we're looking at, the property, to order to better understand whether the substation go there and how and where exactly it could go. Because if we find out there's some conditions of that land that, you know, maybe we need to just shift the substation slightly east or south or whatnot, or maybe they find something that's like, whoa, we need to take a longer look at what we're doing. So we absolutely need to do that survey, which I've authorized to do based on understanding that you authorized me to go forward with coming up with some sort of agreement. But anyway, we're doing that survey, so that's one thing we absolutely need to do. And we did it for this site, and we've done it for other sites. That's just gonna guide us with whether or not and to what extent where we can place a substation. The other thing was, one of the other things is basically determining the amount of land to be donated. So this is kind of dependent on that survey, you know, so where we would potentially, where we could site the substation exactly, as well as, you know, how much land we actually need for it and how much land that the Everards are willing to donate. And again, we talked about whether, you know, it's tax deductible or not, you know, their donation, that's something that is part of the discussions that they will have to look into as part of this agreement. And the third thing we're looking at right now is working on the easements that run through Mary Lou Dawson's property from White Road to the Everards property. There's currently a little easement, but we want to make sure we rework those easements so that we can get our vehicles and our interests to the back lot through Mary Lou Dawson's, as well as we need to have a construction landing spot, right? You know, and there's, you know, one of the spots we're looking at is on Mary Lou Dawson's property for an easement, just for a temporary easement to have our construction equipment there. We met with Tom Hoffman, her sister, and it was good discussion. He explained some of the, you know, their thoughts and, you know, their concerns and their suggestions on that. And I just want to emphasize to council that we will be coming to council. We will be coming back to council definitely with whatever agreements we come up, draft agreements on the land deal, on easements, on the survey. We'll be coming back so you guys make a final decision on it, because what eventually we need to do is accept an agreement for the land and authorize, you know, if it comes to that point, for me to sign an agreement for the land as well as the easements and some other things. So we also would want to look at what additional costs that there may be associated that we didn't know of beforehand. There may be none, but there may be some, you know, there's screening, there's other issues. So we want to know what, you know, additional costs could be. And I'm we'll bring that back to council. But so far, the discussions have been good so far. I think, we're making progress right now. The survey is gonna take about 2 to 4 weeks to complete. So once we have that, then we'll have a better understanding of some of these other aspects. So any questions on that?
Is there, has there been any discussion with, the township at all, or?
We haven't gotten there yet. No. We are first waiting to get this because whatever agreement we do come to, if we come to an agreement needs to be contingent on the plan, on the township approving this. But from my understanding, what previous conversation I with Bill Dome supervisor seems like this was pretty easy. Approval from the township perspective, but we don't know again what kind of conditions their planning commission would put on it. So we're waiting for that though, yes. Okay. Another thing, so everyone's been asking us about this M119 washout, on when it's gonna be fixed, because a lot of people still think it's the city's responsibility, but besides from that, we've been keeping track with the state, trying to, get them to tell us when they're doing things. So they invited us to join a meeting. They had a construction meeting, and their goal right now for those repairs is to put out the bids sometime in April. They're hoping for a September construction. So we're gonna see this whole summer with it's gonna be an official detour. So the state probably won't get to that till, late summer, early fall. They're still finalizing some details with the private property owner there and some of the construction details, but it's been a long process, but that's what we hear from the state, so. And today I did put on a short training session. It was about an hour long for our chairs and vice chairs, trying to kind of get all of our boards and commissions and chairs kind of on the same page about, how to take public comment, how to, run the meetings, to make sure they're aware of the bylaws and the provisions in the bylaws for how they run meetings, as well as state statute, city code, Florida Open Meetings Act, kind of more specific to how they should run a meeting so the meetings are more effective. We had a good turnout. I think we had about 10, between 10 vice chairs and chairs. A couple couldn't make it, but it was, I think it was helpful for them. So it's a good session. Just some regular meetings. I've been on a couple webinars and went to the annual Chamber of Commerce meeting, as well as a 911 meeting in Petoskey, CC 911 regular board meeting. Nothing too exciting at that meeting. Yep. Oh, there are, I should just, as part of Board's Commission, February 8th, there's a public hearing at the Planning Commission for the zoning code updates, as well as February 15th. And then probably sometime in March is when council will start seeing, start having discussions about the zoning code. You probably will there is a link to the zoning code draft on the website right now, so you can go on the homepage, there's a post, so you can look at it. So I would start sifting through it right now and pay attention to the planning commission meetings, because it's a big change. I mean, there's a lot of changes. Some of them are minor, probably nuances. Others are big and different, and want to get yourselves ahead of it, so you guys at least have some understanding before it comes to council, so our meetings are more efficient. So I just encourage you reading it as soon as you can. Start reading. All right. Any questions on any other meetings? All right, so then we have two closed session. First, Jim, if you want to give the one of the auditors.
All right, we would need a council person to.
Yes, person.
To meet in closed session under section 8C of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, to consult with the city attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with the pending Potter litigation, on the ground that an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the litigating or settlement strategy of the city.
I would like to move that we move into a closed session to address the issue that you just brought forth.
Yeah, we'll take that. Yeah, that's
Yeah. Abby Macho,
Yes.
Michael Behrman.
Yes.
Nancy Rondell, and Jamie Mulkey.
Yes.
Jim, do we have to go out and come back in for the next one?